Well, for Marvel and Disney, Deadpool is the gift that keeps giving. Let's do a little bit of a box office update on this film and why it seems to be returning a trend that disappeared with COVID and is massively important to Marvel Studios and pretty much everybody else in the movie industry. Now, honestly, this weekend's box office news is not that much of a surprise, but Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine managed to hold on to the #1 spot once again as it heads into its 6th weekend in the theaters. The film's been holding on to that #1 position pretty well. It actually got briefly dethroned by Alien Romulus earlier this month and dropped to 2nd, but managed to claw its way right back to the top and has held on ever since. Now, a couple movies are coming our way this weekend, including that Dennis Quaid Reagan movie and Blumhouse's AI horror flick Afraid, but none of those films are likely to dethrone the Marvel sequel. Now, the film itself is about to cross the $600 million domestic mark and currently sits at about $1.2 billion worldwide. Now, it's not quite the highest grossing movie of the year domestically. It's got to break $646 million. That was Inside Out 2, and I actually think the film will do that and will likely probably pull in another 10% of overall domestic gross before it finally fizzles out. Now, what I find really funny about this is we're returning to what used to be the norm. Typically, Marvel movies were, box office sensations, and people seem to have forgotten what it was like leading into Endgame. $1 billion was commonplace, and for a film to do $1 billion, it's gotta stick around. I vividly remember the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which to be fair didn't do $1 billion but did very well, dropped to the #2 slot on its week 2, only to regain that title I think a week later and hold on to it, driving its box office numbers up. Now, what this typically indicates is it has 2 things going for it. 1, good word of mouth, and 2, repeat viewers. And to be clear, the only way you're crossing the $1 billion mark in the box office in the modern world is to have those repeat viewers, and that's something in the last couple of Marvel movies, maybe even the whole last phase, that seemed to be lacking, and the return to that is excellent news for both Marvel and Disney. Now, this comes as a 1-2 punch of Disney's good news, because like I said, the current #1 record holder for the year domestically is Inside Out 2, and that also did north of $1 billion worldwide. Now, these 2 movies could end up being the 2 biggest movies of 2024, and considering how well last year Disney did it to theater with Ant-Man basically losing money and the Marvels flat out flopping, this is a great turnaround. Now, I don't think anybody's coming down the pipe to dethrone him anytime soon. I'd have to review the holiday release schedule, but I do not think the Joker sequel has enough hype behind it right now to probably beat either one of these films. Although it could surprise, it doesn't really feel like the interest level is high enough to expect that to happen. In any case, I expect Deadpool to top out at probably at $1.3 billion. Maybe it'll get lucky and hit 1.4. No matter what, the film is a huge success for Marvel and Ryan Reynolds, whose production company actually made this movie. It was their first project, and although Ryan denies it, he will be back as Deadpool, and of course Marvel's going to make Hugh Jackman play the role until he's 90.